Well, welcome to the Celebs.com studio, sponsored by Movie Maker magazine. Stan Lee, congratulations on having a film not just at a festival, but about you up here at Park City. How does it feel to see so many people just literally talking about you and the impact you've had? How does that feel to you personally?
I'll show you what makes me such a great interviewee, why interviewers love me. It feels good. No, it feels wonderful. I mean, I can hardly believe it.
Yeah. And in terms of the title, did you have any say in the title of the film, With Great Power?
Somebody dreamed it up. I thought it was very clever because it's a takeoff on that line I wrote for Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. So I'm so glad they wanted to use something based on something I had written.
Yeah. When you were getting started, what did your family think of the career and the passion that you'd chosen?
My family, which consisted of my mother and father in those days, they were happy with whatever I did. Before I worked in the comics, I had been a theater usher, I had been a delivery boy, I had been an office boy, I had written publicity for a network, for a news syndicate. I wrote obituaries, not publicity, I wrote obituaries of people who were still alive. You know, celebrities. Mm-hmm. When a celebrity dies, the very next issue, there's a whole article, and you wonder, how did they write it so fast? It's been written in advance. That's how you know you're a celebrity, if your obituary is already written. So I did that. I did everything. Yeah. And my parents, as long as I was earning money and I was happy with what I was doing, they felt fine. In those days, just having a job was being successful. I did not live in a wealthy area.
So many people grew up with your material, with your characters, with the worlds that you created for them. And really it makes up a lot of who they are for some people. What did you grow up with that led to this? Like, what was your pop culture?
I guess what everybody else did. As a kid, I loved movies. I loved adventure movies. I loved anything with Errol Flynn in it. He was the big adventure star then. I would, when I was 12 years old, let's say, I would leave an Errol Flynn movie where he played Captain Blood, let's say, and, with sword fights with Basil Rathbone. And I would leave the theater with an imaginary sword at my side, with a crooked little smile the way I thought Errol Flynn smiled. And I'd be looking for some little girl that a bully was picking on so that I could rush to her defense like Errol Flynn would have done. And I read the books that all kids read, the Tom Swift books and the Hardy Boys, and I also read all sorts of science fiction, Jules Verne. I read everything I could lay my hands on. I even read Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it that well, but I loved the sound of the words, the what ho Horatio type of stuff.
They seemed like they were made to go in captions.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it like the first time? I mean, you're up here with a movie, so what was it like the first time one of your comics was adapted into a big budget feature film? What was that feeling like?
Well, I think the first one was probably the X-Men. When I heard they were doing it, I was thrilled. And when I finally saw it on the screen, and it was so beautifully done, you know, directed by Bryan Singer, I couldn't get over it. It was one of the high spots of my life. This thing that I had written so many years ago, and to see it as a major motion picture, which anybody could be proud of because it was so well done. My emotion was indescribable.
Yeah. Do you consider, like, now that there have been so many adaptations and it's become such a huge commercial enterprise to adapt this sort of material, do you feel like you're still part of a club of people who created comics, or do you feel like you're part more so now of a world of filmmakers and film people?
Well, right now I seem to be in a lot of worlds, and I love it. I'm involved with filmmakers. I have a new company of my own called POW Entertainment. We're making movies, we do television, we do videos, we're on the web, we're all over. And I still have I still am involved with Marvel. I have an involvement with Disney. And so I deal with I still write an occasional comic for Marvel, and I've just written a new bunch of comics for POW called The Mighty Seven. And they're the world's first reality comic books, because real people are in the story. I'm one of the characters in the story. It'll be out in a few months. It's going to be quite talked about, I think. And I'm doing a lot of different things in a lot of different fields. So I forgot what your question was, but I hope I've answered it.
No, that's right. You're different clubs at different times, I guess. But the thing is, as well now, are you still, like, do you read other people's comics? Like,
No.
what? You don't?
And that's not a snobbishness on my part. I don't have time. I don't even read our own. I don't read. Marvel sends me the comic books. I don't have time to read them. I look at the covers because I like to see what's being published, but I haven't time to read comics. I used to always read. There was always a book at my end table when I went to sleep. I can't even do that. By the time I get to bed, I'm asleep in 1 minute.
Yeah. So many people, collecting has been such a huge thing, obviously, and with eBay, you can get a real sense for just how much these things are worth, these comics that, you know, the original editions and obviously the number ones and all that sort of stuff. Do you collect anything?
I wish I had had the brains to collect these books. Neither I nor all the people I worked with in those days ever suspected there'd be any value for these. We used to give them away. A kid would come up from the delicatessen to deliver a sandwich, and we'd say, hey, take these books with you, will you? We have no room for them. Or take these pieces of original artwork. They're taking up too much space. It was terrible.
Yeah. So do you collect anything else? Like what's your own personal...
No, I've never been a collector. My wife is a collector. She loves antiques and everything. Anything that's decorative and pretty, she'll collect. But I haven't been a collector.
How do you feel about? I mean, some fans obviously must border on the line of harassment sometimes. But your fans are so passionate. Does that feed you? Does that, like, knowing that people are waiting with bated breath on whatever you do next?
It's a great feeling. I don't think about it often unless I come to a film festival or a comic book convention. But when people come over to you and they act as if they care about the things you've done and they're pleased to meet you and so forth, and they might want an autograph or a picture, it is so flattering. I mean, it has to make you feel good.
Yeah. How do you feel about, like, the Comic-Con? Like, I mean, it has grown into such a huge thing. It must also be a wonderful experience if you're in that environment.
Comic-Con, when I first went, it used to be all kids, little children, occasionally an adult, because the kid was too young to come by himself. Today, you go to a comic book convention, it's mostly grown-ups. Occasionally a little kid because the parent couldn't get a babysitter.
Is there any character that you didn't create that you would like to have created?
Oh, anything that's successful. I wish I had created Superman or Batman, sure.
And the latest projects on the feature screen, like obviously, like Kenneth Branagh had some success with Thor. You know, is there anything that hasn't yet been touched that you're hoping will make it to the big screen?
Oh, Marvel is going to touch every one of them eventually. I'm sure we're going to see Doctor Strange. We're even going to see Ant-Man. I'm sure we'll see the Black Panther. Oh, we have so many characters that are still to be done.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you in here. I look forward to seeing you as a cameo in doing something in the background of one of these films again.
Don't miss the new Spider-Man or Avengers cameos. They're the funniest ones I've done.
Oh, you want to give us any insight on them? We'll just keep a lookout. Thanks, Stan.
Hey, great speaking to you. Thanks for
Appreciate you
having
stopping
me.
by.
Right. Hey, thank you for